Hello and welcome to Ordinary People Doing Extraordinary Things, the podcast show. I am your host, Carrie Roberts. And today I have a new extraordinary guest that I just found and met. I have Miss Tara Blume. She is a professional Foley artist, and I'm so excited to have her here. Welcome, Tara.
Thanks for having me.
So I like to start from the beginning because I really want to hear your journey. When you were a kid, what type of kid were you? Were you into art, music, sound? What type of things were you into?
I actually have been performing my whole life. I'm a singer and a dancer as well.
I'm a
Um,
dancer too. I always love dancers.
nice. So I would not shy, but always I think I was dancing and singing from like age 5 in like groups, so
And so, as you kind of, I think, I always ask that question because when we're kids, a lot of who we are stems from what we love to do at a young age.
yeah.
And so you're into all of this art. Was there a point, when you're kind of at that high school age where you decided, like, okay, I think I want to pursue some sort of art in college or I want to go work? What was kind of your thought process maybe around 17 or 18
I was trying to pursue my voice for sure.
from a singing perspective?
Oh yeah.
And what type of singing did you do?
I am pretty bluesy sounding, like rock kind of blues voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, did you go to school for that or you
Yeah, I went to
performed?
Berkeley College of Music for my voice.
Was that it's so funny because you're very nonchalant. You're like, "Yeah, I went there for school." But that's a hard school to get into. So, you go and audition. I mean, did you have kind of growing up that people were like, "You're great at this, you should do this," or was this something you're like, "I'm just going to try and see what happens?"
Actually, I've had so many people tell me that I shouldn't sing. Like so many people.
Really?
Oh my God. Like every person has told me not to sing.
For what reason?
I don't know.
They thought you weren't good or they were like, "You should do something that makes money," type of thing.
I don't really know. I don't understand till this day why I was told that. I mean, it definitely hindered me because I obviously didn't choose my voice.
Yeah.
Um, but it definitely led me to Foley for sure.
So let's talk about that. So you go into singing, but you
Mhm.
decide to go into Foley. For people that don't know what Foley is, how do you describe it and how did you find out about what it was?
Okay, so it's so hard to explain to people actually. It's usually like a paragraph or 3 sentences. So I start off saying, everything you watch, there's a Foley artist that watches the film with no sound and reperforms the sound to picture. And usually you get like, what? What are you talking about? So I just have to like, I'll like describe a scene or something. So I'll just be like, okay, so say there's like a Western, right? So the cowboy's footsteps is actually a Foley artist in a sound stage watching the screen and walking those footsteps in real time to the picture. And they kind of still don't get it. I'm like, and then I'll be like, yeah, like wherever we're standing, I'll like pick like a cup up or something. I'll be like, that's Foley. Like this is Foley.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
But I mean, I was telling you before we got on this, I didn't know what it was until probably I think there was like a couple articles or videos. I mean, I just thought like you record something and you take that natural sound.
right.
Where did this idea of Foley come from? I mean, why do we need that? Why doesn't it pick up from an audio standpoint? And how did you find out about it?
So I found out, you asked me that in the other question. So I found out about it at school. I took a visual media class, and we were just taught about post production, all the things in post production, and I like fell in love with it. The course, you had to do like a 3 minute clip of a movie, like that my instructor had. That like there was 20 clips she had that we could pick from. I think I picked The Matrix. There's like the scene where Morpheus is explaining the Matrix,
Yep.
where it's like, you like see all the farms, like that's the scene I did, and I just like fell in love with Foley. I was like, this is the craziest thing ever. The way it originated, when there were silent films, a man named Jack Foley would do insert shots for picture, in a studio. And so like so they didn't pay actors to do insert shots. So it's like the visual of the hand like grabbing a gun out of a holster. They wouldn't pay the actor to do it. So Jack Foley would recreate the picture that was being inserted into the film in a soundproof area. So like was perfect sound while he was doing the visual that gave him the idea of adding sound to film.
I mean, is there training in this? So you see this and you're like, oh, this is something that I want to do. Were you able to like take classes in it? Like, how does somebody even get involved in this?
I think that's why people say and still believe that it's so hard to get into it, because there are no courses. I think, some older Foley artists that have worked for Warner Brothers and stuff, they might do like one-off courses and like around here in LA, but not like a dedicated class that I know of. And honestly, it is a finesse thing. It's a touch thing. It's like something that you have to perfect over time. It's not like, oh, you're good at soccer, or like, oh, you're good at singing. Like, it's not like that. You have to like hone the craft.
Yeah.
I actually taught myself how to do it.
But so like I wanted to say we have Kenneth saying he loves The Matrix, and I would imagine there's so much in that as well. So because I watched some of your videos, you're on Instagram and you kind of show how you're doing this, and my first thought was, how does she know what it sounds like to do anything? Like, how do you know what it sounds like to pull a blade or to pull straps? Because that's not the stuff you're using when you make the noise. How do you know that?
That's a great question. And honestly, like since I started going down this path, which I was like 23, I literally have just been cataloging things in everyday kind of situations. So, I'll come across something weird and I'll literally like, I'll pick it up like 4 different times and I'll be like, like in a row to like hear what it sounds like. And it's just like, cool, it's there. I'm serious. That's what I've been doing.
So is that, but see, like you said, you were a dancer, a musician, you study music in college. Do you think having a music background helps you with this? Like if somebody's not musical, they probably would struggle with this.
I think rhythmically, for sure, it does help with that. I think my dancing background has helped me more than my singing background. Because it's sound choreography.
Yes.
It's like memorizing a visual and then literally doing sound choreography.
And so when you, like you said, you're going around and kind of making sounds, do you just keep this mentally in your head, or do you have like a Excel spreadsheet of like, this stapler makes this sound?
No. It's all mental. And there has been a couple of times where I was in the Foley stage and I had never heard whatever it was. So then you kind of rely on your Foley mixer, ask them what it's made of, or just kind of like zoom in on the prop a little bit more so you are certain what the element is that's in the visual. Because sometimes like metal and wood and concrete all kind of look the same depending on lighting and things. So and then if your Foley mixer doesn't know, because really you're working as a team, a Foley team is either 2 Foley artists and a mixer, or 1 artist and a mixer, and you're really relying on each other to like figure things out like that. So if your mixer doesn't know, I've had to like stop the session and like Google it, like, I'm trying to remember what the item was that I couldn't remember what it's called. There's a definite word for it. It's like it's the SOS machine. I don't know what
That's okay. So that's interesting. I mean, the fact that you can keep that in your head, but also, like you said, you're kind of going around in your day, kind of making noise, and then trying to kind of catalog it in your head. And before we got on, you said your husband also works in sound, in music. Mm-hmm. I'm curious how the two of you met, and like, is your household just filled with sound and like percussion and movement all the time?
Yeah, we are a very musical house. He's a producer and engineer, so he's always working in this room, the room that I'm in right now, creating music and but it's not really sounds. It's more we listen to a lot of music.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how
Um,
did you
we
guys meet?
we met at Berkeley College of Music, and we were in the same major, actually. Um, there goes my lights. 1 second.
That's okay. If you are joining us, we are talking about Foley art, and Tara is kind of talking about her journey a little bit. So go ahead. You're telling us the two of you, you and your husband, you met at Berkeley College of Music. You
Berkeley College
both
of Music.
are doing music. Go ahead.
Uh, Brian, my husband, is a drummer. I'm a singer. Those were our principal instruments because you have to have a principal instrument to go to Berkeley. And then our major was music production engineering. That was actually my major. um, so yeah, I don't know. We met our junior year and just kind of never stopped seeing each other.
So one of the things I was watching a video where someone else had kind of interviewed you, and I wanted to go a little deeper. Um, you talked about there's a difference between Foley and effect, meaning like Foley and special effects. What is the difference between the two?
So effects can be more of mechanical sounds, and Foley is more of like the raw organic sound that is in a scene. So, for example, getting into a car, the Foley artist will do the cloth, the footsteps, the hand on the door, and then the effects will cut in the sound of a door opening of the car. And effects libraries have like all different types of car sounds, like car door sounds. So like one would sound like an Audi, one sounds like a classic car, one sounds like a rickety, like there's just endless amounts of sound bites of different doors opening. So, and we can't create that because we don't have cars on the stages and it's so particular and stuff like that. So, and then like once the person gets into the car, Foley is the car seat sound, like the movement of the car seat, steering wheel. Obviously, an effect would be like a phone ringing inside of a car, the stereo.
So
Um,
more almost like technological sounds.
yeah, more mechanic.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. The other thing you had said was there's a difference between art and editing. And I think the person had kind of said to you like, "Oh, do you create something and then you go back and edit it?" And you said, "No, I'm an artist. I'm not an editor." What does
right.
that mean to you?
Okay, so he that in that particular interview, the assignment was to do like a stay at home, like recreate sound for a clip in my house with all the stuff in my house and not use like a stage basically. Um, and while I was doing the exercise, I realized real quickly that I had to like do the timing perfectly because I wasn't about to like sit there for a week and try to edit all these clips of video together to get the sound to sound right. And that's just what I meant by that. Like it was easier for me to repetitively try to perform it properly in sync perfectly than for me to edit video. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like you said, I think, what I'm learning is it's much more organic. So even the process you're doing is organic.
Right.
So let's go back for a second. So you decide kind of in college, okay, this is actually what I want to be doing.
Oh my God, I was like
You,
obsessed.
yeah.
It was crazy. I did like four other of my friends' projects, like because they were just like Foley, what? They didn't know how to like do it, and I was like, I'll just be your Foley artist. Like somebody in their group was supposed to be the Foley artist, and they were just like, what?
And
So,
you're just
like,
so,
four.
but I mean, now you have won an Emmy for the work that you've done.
Mhm,
You've done some well known shows like Westworld and Atlanta.
mhm.
How did go? You live in LA now. I think a lot of people dream of that to some capacity, whether they're any kind of artist. They want to be in entertainment. They want to move to LA. They want to make it, quote unquote.
Right.
How did you get to that? How did you get from I love this, I'm doing these side projects for friends to now I'm working in a higher entertainment space? What was kind of the connections you made or the work that you did or the journey you did to get there?
It was a huge leap of faith just moving here, honestly. And my husband had already moved out here a semester ahead of me. So I had my husband, and we have a large community of Berkeley grads that live out here. So one of them like took us in, and we like stayed with a friend, like it was definitely a community effort to get us out here,
Yeah.
And then honestly, it was a drag race once I was here. It was like, you know, I think MySpace was new when I came out here. If that lets y'all know how old I
Yeah.
am. And then, I'm just like trying to make a resume. I'm just like Googling and searching all these post houses as much as I can, like literally going and knocking down doors and sneaking past security and you name it, of like 75 different post houses. And just like, they were nice people, but it's just like, yeah, we can't help you. Try these people. And that's what I did. I just like maybe saw like 75 people that way. And then there would be months where I would go to the beach and I'd like give up and just whatever. And then there'd be weeks where I like went to like 20 different post houses and was just like, what's up? I'm here. Do you need Foley? And honestly, I hadn't done one real project when that was happening. I mean, all I had done was like, I knew about it in college and I did a student project. I hadn't really done I didn't have any credits at that point. And then I left a voicemail on somebody's phone and it got returned 6 months later.
Yes.
And that was my start of Foley.
So as you're doing this, I mean, you just kind of were like, okay, some days you're upset about, and other days you're like, just do the work, just talk to people, just push through. Where do you think that confidence came from for you, and that drive to say, I don't really have experience, I just like this, but I'm gonna just talk to any single person that will listen to me?
I've always kind of been that way. I've always been very like, I know exactly what I want. I know that I can do that too. I'm just confident in my own ability, I guess, somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I was super confident that I would be very good at it. I don't know why. It just came naturally to me. Like once that pocket was like opened up in my brain, I was like, oh my God, I get this. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I don't know where that confidence comes from. My mother? I don't know.
It's because I think that's the thing, right? I mean, you hear this all the time. People, they push and push and push, and then nothing's happening, and they're frustrated, and a lot of times people just give up. And so, some people it happens in a year, sometimes it happens in 20 years, sometimes it never happens. And so, I think a lot of people get frustrated. Do you have any advice or words of wisdom for any artist? I'll kind of choose that arena that is kind of that moved to LA or to New York and wants to get into any type of art, but is just hearing a lot of no.
Yeah, I mean, be kind, be a good person, be a nice person, be a cool person to hang out with. Because people don't want to work with assholes. Like, they just don't. And you're only as good as the last thing you did. So,
That's for life too.
mhm.
And I mean, being a dancer myself, I mean, the community is much smaller than you think. So like, if you're not being a good person, that's going to be talked about later on, but at least if they enjoy your company, they'll work with you. So I think that's a really good point.
Yeah,
Now,
and I've come across a lot of people too that have wanted to work with me or a mixer that I was working with. And, they're like, there's a real fine line between being very arrogant and like confident. And I have found that a lot of people are in the realm of arrogance, and it's like nobody wants to work with that either,
yeah.
especially if you don't know what you're talking about.
Which yes, that tends to be the case as well. So you won an Emmy for your Foley artwork for Atlanta. Which congratulations, that's a huge
Thank you.
accomplishment. When that happened, what were your feelings? Were you like, I made it, I did it? Were you like, do I deserve this? Like, what was your feeling when you were like, you're the winner of this?
Unfortunately, I didn't think a lot of it until the following year when I didn't get nominated at all. I was
You're like,
like,
wait a
oh,
second, I just won.
yeah, I was like, oh, maybe this is kind of hard because I got nominated 3 times in one year and then won one.
That's so cool.
And
For the same show or for something different?
For 3 different projects,
Mm-hmm.
which is like crazy when I think about it now. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
But at the time, I was just like, this is cool. Like whatever.
Well, it's like you just said earlier, like you're only as good as the last thing you did. And I think like anything else, there are people that are choosing and it's just maybe their preference or what they think or other people. It's not necessarily against anything you did, right? I mean, would you agree?
Yeah, totally. And I think things like that are very synergistic. That's the
Mm-hmm.
word. Like, I feel like, being at the right place at the right time, or like shows aligning at the right time. And you know what I mean? It all matters.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree.
Mhm.
Did you get to give an acceptance speech or they just give it to you? Like, what's the experience of that?
So no. So I'm a Foley artist, and actually Foley artists don't really get recognized as much as we
Mm-hmm.
would like that we should, maybe, because we are actually performing and doing the performance of the sound. Usually Foley mixers or the Foley supervisor or sound supervisor will do the acceptance speech for something like that. So there were like 10 people that I went on stage with, including the sound supervisor.
Right.
So the sound supervisor, lucky for me, it spoke.
But you have your picture. I was like, when I saw the picture, I was like, that's so exciting.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
what is because you talked about working in a stage, right now you're near your husband's production studio, but when you are doing your art, do you have like a stage in your home? Like what is a Foley artist, like, what is that set up like?
No, there's many, many Foley stages around town. And it's a messy, messy place. So you don't, it would be tough to work where a Foley stage is or live where a Foley stage is. Um, yeah, there's all types of items and equipment on a Foley stage. It would also be like very expensive to build a Foley stage.
Yeah, and I mean, I've seen on your Instagram. I mean, it's like you got mud, you've got buckets, you've got all these different things around you.
Right. So that's where I work. I go downtown to work. And it's a dedicated Foley stage. And usually we'll have 8+ different surfaces to do footsteps on, including like gravel and DG, which we use for dirt. It's decomposed granite.
Hmm.
And there'll be a water pit, there'll be a glass pit, there'll be wood, metal, like concrete. It's just you need a dedicated space to do it for sure.
Why, like, how come if I step in mud in real life, I hear a sound, but when you're recreating it, it's not the same thing?
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
I'm not sure I understand what your question is.
So, like, I would think, like, okay, if I need to make a sound of somebody stepping in mud,
Mm-hmm.
then why wouldn't I just step in mud?
Well,
Why is it, like you said, like a granite type of thing? Like, why is that? Why are the sounds in Foley different than what we would imagine them to be?
right. Okay. So just to make it easier, honestly, and because you're in an indoor space. So for mud, for example, like I've used actual mud before to do sound with, but it's very messy, and not all things that you work on have that budget where you can spend 2 to 4 hours on mud feet and then clean it up. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So,
Okay, that
like,
makes sense.
yeah, like sometimes you're working on CSI. That's one of the shows we work on. And it's like, you're doing a 48-minute show in a day. So it's like, let's go. How fast can you do this?
Do you do usually one take? So if somebody says, okay, here's a CSI episode, you said 48 minutes, it takes you all day. So it's what, like an 8-hour day. So are you just watching it and going one by one? What is the process here?
Right. So we have Foley cuers and editors that will touch the Foley, usually in a Pro Tools session before and after we do our work. So the Foley cuer will set up a whole Pro Tools. Do you know what Pro Tools is?
Mm-mm.
Pro Tools is the main audio
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
software that's used in all types of arena, like 80. I'm sorry, my life.
You're okay.
It's like my husband has created a vibe in here, and it just like it like goes off all the time.
No worries at all.
It's on a motion sensor. Okay, so what were we saying?
So you were talking about kind of how your day goes when you're creating Foley. So if you're doing a
Right.
CSI, what
So
that's like.
before we even touch something, a Foley cuer will set up a Pro Tool session for us, and we work in time code. So there's four columns of time code that's matched to the picture. You know about this, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Where you place markers for us. So like say a woman is walking on linoleum with heels, they'll mark out how far she's walking in the session. So when my Foley mixer comes to it, he'll just put beeps right up to where the region is, and he'll tell me what I'm doing, obviously. And then I'll get ready for it, and I'll hear the beeps run. Not everybody uses beeps, but we use beeps. We hear beeps run, and on the imaginary fourth beep, you do those footsteps. So it's done that way for everything that you see that needs sound. So keys, notebooks, pencils, heels, bags, sit downs, car doors, like all of the above.
And when you're doing it, do you usually do it like, okay, I'm doing the mud thing, for example, and now I'm going to rewatch it. Oh, that sounded accurate. That's good. Move to the next one. Oh, it doesn't. Like, are you doing that kind of one by one?
For sure. We do every sound isolated one at a time. And I don't know, I at some point I was doing that for sure, but I'm to a level where I know in real time as I'm performing it if I was off or on. So I can usually depict in my mixers usually can tell right away what was off. So we'll just snap right to whatever that was and either recapture just that section or we'll redo the whole thing depending on how off it was or if it just didn't sound right or whatever.
Yeah. You know, it's a really interesting process. I mean, I think when when people go to college and you're like, here's the majors you can choose. You're like, this is something. I think it's really exciting. You know, the other thing I wanted to ask you about, I do a lot in the podcasting and voice technology space. So voice technology meaning like Amazon Alexa, Google Assistant. And there is so much now. I would say podcasting in the last year or so has grown tremendously with Spotify purchasing Gimlet, which is a huge company, and now all these companies are purchasing. Everybody's having a podcast. You're seeing celebrities come in. And now it becomes, there's an element of sonic branding, which is about, okay, here's a sound or music that emphasizes my brand. And some are just interviews, but a lot of them are now becoming these kind of audio narratives. Have you seen, or do you see Foley playing a place or having a place in kind of these audio experiences?
I mean, that's kind of how Foley also originated, was on the radio. So, I mean, that would be dope. I'm into it.
Yeah. Is that different though? Because now you're not, like, how would that be different for you as a Foley artist? Because you're not watching.
I would have to choreograph it. So I would have to like set out, I would have to know what I was going to do. I'd have to map it all out. And then I would have to set out all the props and mic it all. You know what I mean? Maybe have multiple mics if I was going to do something like that. Because it's almost like live theater Foley, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah, so it is a slightly different process. Yeah, because I think...
Yeah, it would be much faster pace. And obviously it's not to a visual. So you just want to make a nice sounding sound. It doesn't have to match something.
Right. It adds kind of an emphasis to it. Because you'll see a lot of narratives that have... where people are, taking original talks from somewhere else and they're kind of producing that together. But there is an element where I'm like, wow, Foley art could really fit here, enhance so much of this audio interactive experience. And I do see it kind of growing in that space. And like you said, it's interesting that that's where it started. When you listen to something or watch something, how do you feel and experience sound?
It depends on how good it is.
So you're like judging it. You're like, oh, that was not correct.
Yeah, I mean, when Foley is done well, and more often than not, it is. you are lost in whatever it is and you're not paying attention to the Foley. And that's the hope of the Foley team, is to create sound that you're not even noticing. But a lot of the time, something's not right, where it doesn't match to me, or it sounds weird, or whatever it is. It'll take me out of the storyline, and then I'll go like 10 minutes where I have no idea what happened in the show, and I'm just like, what just happened?
Because you're so focused.
Yeah,
and
that one
attuned to
sound like brought me into just listening to Foley, and now, so I know what happened in the Foley for the last 10 minutes, but I don't know what happened in the storyline.
Yeah. That's so funny. So if people are watching or listening and they're like, I didn't know about this, or, oh my gosh, this sounds so cool, I want to get involved, what would you suggest? Especially now we're in 2020 as we're recording this. Like you said, back when you did it, there wasn't a lot of social media out. Where can somebody kind of learn more about this art or get involved in it?
I wish I had an answer for this, because I get hit up all the time on my Instagram page, like, are you taking interns, blah, 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 like asking me if I would teach people. And I guess, again, that's why it's so difficult to get into, because you almost have to just find an opportunity, whatever that may be. If it's a student film, that's often where I direct people to do, is like go to a university where there's film students that need to do short films and they don't have any way of getting Foley done. Just be like, I'll do your Foley.
Mm-hmm. Which is how you started. Yeah.
Right. That's what I would tell people to do, because, people like myself that are working all the time, we don't have the time to do something like that. And I was kind of, I've kind of taught a couple people, maybe like let them sit in and stuff, but it's something that needs time, like you just need to really put a lot of time into it. And especially with COVID now, it's so weird to have somebody be in the room with you. So it's kind of a difficult question that I don't have a great answer for, but I would definitely direct people towards students and student films that are trying to get it done as much as, for free as possible, and just literally do it for free.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, in a space where you can kind of just practice and create. I mean, that's definitely the ideal space, I would imagine.
Right. And then the other thing I tell people is just to start cataloging sounds in your everyday life and pay attention to your environment and what you hear and what things sound like and what footsteps sound like. I know when I was a younger Foley artist, I would just like go to a mall and like watch people walk, because everybody has their own gait, and everybody it's like everybody has like their own walking character, you know what I mean? And then like you could hone in on somebody like in a mall, and then you could like almost know when they're gonna scuff if you're watching them long enough. Where it's like, oh yeah, that guy, he walks and then he does like 3 scuffs when he stops. Stuff like that.
Yeah, so it's a lot of the detail, noticing the detail visually, but then like you said, in kind of an auditory way. And how can I find something that resembles that? I do think it is kind of an intuitive thing. I do think there is an element of, I'm sure elements can be taught, but you have to kind of, like you said, it's organic. You have to feel it. I would assume to be really good at it.
Yeah, a lot of the times I'll have props in my hand and I have no idea what sound's going to come out of them. But like a lot of the time, like the best sound happens on the first try. So I don't want to ruin the first try. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I'm just like, let's just see what happens, and then it's like, great. And then we just move on.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Now, you have a wonderful Instagram account that really showcases kind of what you're doing. So if anyone's interested, they can kind of see how it works. What is the Instagram account if people want to connect with you?
At Boom Foley.
Link that up also.
BOOMFOLEY.
Yeah, check it out. It's really interesting stuff. That's how you and I met. And the last question I have for you, Tara, is what is one word or quote or mantra that you try to live by every single day?
I feel like that's ever changing for me.
So what is it right now, today, at this moment?
Self-care, self-care, self-care. Uh, no, man, really, like I got injured in my 30s, like, whew, got the carpet taken out from underneath me and had to learn real fast to like, you don't always have to like be the greatest and do the hardest things at all time. You can actually take care of yourself.
Yes, that is a good one. I agree. Well,
Yeah.
I thank you so much, Tara, for kind of sharing a little bit more about what Foley art is, what it means to you. I look forward to seeing more of what you do and how it expands into the audio space as well.
Thanks. Thanks for the interview. I enjoyed it.